With two surprisingly great, heartfelt films under its belt, Inside Out is officially one of Pixar's most consistently good franchises, and that's thanks in large part to its characters. So today, we're ranking every major character from the Inside Out duology from worst to best. This is the Inside Out tier list. But before we get into the real standouts, let's start with the characters who are just there. This is the C tier, and taking the bottom spot are these guys. Yeah, these construction guys. When Riley's puberty alarm goes off, which is a really uncomfortable sentence to say, Fritz and his crew come aboard for the long-awaited demolition day. Their goal is to expand on the control panel and headquarters to accommodate Riley's new, more complex emotions. Which sounds innocent enough, so why do we rank them at the bottom? Mainly because of lack of customer consideration. In fact, are they even hired? They not only show up completely unannounced, but they do so in the dead of night, waking all the emotions up, and in the process of reconstruction, they almost kill several of them. Had they given the group some prep time, things might have gone a lot smoother for the emotions, and more importantly, for Riley herself. Our least favorite of the human characters, Coach Roberts, is next. Coach Roberts is one of those teachers/coaches who likes to make a point by punishing her whole team for the misdeeds of only a couple students. This is bad enough already, but then there's the fact that said students were freshmen, and heck, not even that, they were soon to be freshmen. And yet Roberts felt the need to antagonize them on day one for being more rambunctious than they ought to be. Jumping back to the original movie, Jangles the Clown is up next. A clown who unintentionally traumatized Riley as a child, cementing himself as the star of many of her nightmares. He's actually a fun concept for an antagonist and lends himself to a pretty good chase sequence. It's just a shame that more isn't done with him. On a similar note, rounding out the C tier, we have a character who's probably okay with being buried beneath so many others. Deep Dark Secret is actually a really cool idea for a character in this universe. We all have those secrets that are so uncomfortable, so shameful that we feel the need to bury them in the deepest recesses of our mind. Whether it's an embarrassing mistake in a social setting or that thing you did last summer. You know what I'm talking about. Deep Dark Secret is the embodiment of that concept of bottled up secrets and has a ton of storytelling potential, which is exactly why he's in our bottom tier. Despite that potential, Deep Dark Secret is almost entirely absent from the bulk of the movie. He only appears in a single comedic scene before the credits roll, and while he's definitely intriguing, he's overshadowed by Bluefy and Lance, both of whom are a lot funnier and won't have you wondering what their backstory is for the rest of the movie. But let's move on from the dark stuff and to the more likable faces in the franchise. This is the B tier. And if you're already missing the C tier characters, then nostalgia might just be for you. Like Deep Dark Secret, she appears quite sparingly throughout the movie. In fact, she only appears in 2 scenes, and neither of them have her in a prominent role.
Those were the days.
While she has an endearing design and voice, and it's always nice to see her, you could probably remove her from the film and it wouldn't really change a thing. Still, she doesn't do much, but she also doesn't overstay her welcome. And if you still think she should be ranked higher, look on the bright side. You can nostalgically reminisce on the time we talked about her as we go further down our list. With that said, let's move from an old friend to a new friend, Bree. She's one of Riley's new friends and seems to have a similar tendency to overthink things. When Riley's own disgust realizes that she's hiding something, Bree's disgust retaliates by realizing that Riley realizes that she's hiding something. That kind of intuition is pretty impressive, and while she doesn't do all that much throughout the movie, she's still a sweet character and a good friend. But we're gonna give a slightly higher spot to her more outgoing friend, Grace. She's just as kind and supportive a friend as Bree is. The pressure of seeing their intense stare-off leads to her being the one to reveal that she and Bree are going to go to a different high school. And as someone who cannot lie under pressure, I respect her for that. The real reason she's a bit higher though is the fact that she was so quick to forgive Riley for accidentally shoulder bashing her, which had to hurt, but she didn't even seem to mind, and showed more concern over Riley's mental state. We may not all deserve friends like that, but we definitely need them. But while those two are awesome friends, and by their own own admission will be forever, Valentina Ortiz is a surprisingly wholesome addition to Riley's inner circle. And seriously, watch the trailers because you would think that this girl would have some downside to her, like she would be a bad influence on Riley. But no, she's actually someone Riley looks up to and earns the reputation by being hardworking and friendly. Anxiety may have been convinced that she'd be high maintenance, but Val here is a shockingly pleasant character who takes on a sort of big sister role to Riley. Sometimes it's nice to have a character who surprises you with just how nice they are. But closing out the B tier, we have Riley's two biggest supporters, Riley's parents. Although we don't see much of these two individually, taken together they're both genuinely doting parents to their daughter. They encourage all of her hobbies and passions, whether that's letting her cook dinner for the family or hyping her up for a hockey training camp. These two are just absolute gems, and what boosts them even higher is the fact that they don't show any frustration towards Riley for her teenage moodiness. A parenting trait that I'm sure many kids and former kids in the audience envy a bit. But now we move on to the most memorable characters. This is the A tier. Hopefully our starting character, Envy, won't be jealous of the people in the S tier. Out of all the new characters, she might have the cutest new design, which is a frizzy-haired light bulb looking thing. While envy isn't the first emotion we'd think of, she makes a ton of sense to include in Riley's teen years. Seeing others you want to be like is one of the greatest motivators of high school life, after all. This leads to Envy being one of the movie's most self-absorbed characters, always wanting more of anything and everything she can get her little hands on, whether that's social status or core memories. As much as we'd love to place her higher though, honestly, we feel like there could have been more here. Like, when I think envy, especially in teenage years, I think of the most absolutely toxic jealousy you've ever had. Jealousy over romantic partners, new cars, new phones, new whatever you want, etc. Envy is a fun character, but she doesn't really play much into the negative aspects of her namesake, which makes her one of the less memorable new additions. Next up we have Inui, the flat-faced Frenchman known for his lack of being interested in pretty much anything. This guy is definitely the most on-the-nose addition to Riley's emotional roster. Everything from his design to his use of an app to control the console that's literally 10 feet away from him is the epitome of teen stereotypes. You gotta love the fact that he literally never shows any emotion other than sheer indifference unless he's separated from his phone.
That's ennui.
On what?
Ennui. It's what you would call the boredom.
Definitely a fun character, but we're certainly curious as to how he's going to fit in with the group as a whole. Like, is boredom really an emotion? And also, why is one of Riley's emotions French? Moving on from the newcomers, let's go to the first of the OG emotions, disgust. Like Envy, disgust is a bit more snobby than her co-workers, and also like Envy, she isn't really the first emotion you would think of at the helm of somebody's mind. Regardless, disgust does play a surprisingly crucial role. Like we mentioned earlier, we see her help Riley perceive that Bree is hiding information from her, showing that she's able to read deep into social cues and use the skill to help Riley make solid conclusions. This could have easily been a one-off joke about overthinking, but the crazy part is, she was right. By wordlessly pressing her for information, she managed to squeeze the truth out of Riley's friends.
Gotta get our mouth guard, people!
Fear. No, that's not ours. Ugh. Disgust. Glad to have her on our team.
Credit where it's due, disgust is one of the smartest of Riley's emotions, and despite her being the embodiment of disgust itself, she's actually a pretty nice person, or emotion. In a very similar light, let's talk about our boy, Anger. This square-shaped Buck Cluck cosplayer has all the anger of a man driving to work 15 minutes late without any coffee. Hell hath no fury. Now, Anger might be a violent, rage-filled little guy, and this does lead to some concerning, albeit hilarious moments.
Overreact much?
I barely touched it.
The most notable of the bunch has to be his role in the movie's third act, where he calls up Pouchy out of nowhere and digs around his mouth trying to find anything that isn't just dynamite to help them get back to HQ. Does the subconscious just not have harassment laws? But for every short-tempered, unhinged moment, there's another where Anger shows his more sensitive side.
50-50.
When Joy loses her temper, yeah, we're shocked too. Anger is the one who speaks encouraging words to her. He doesn't sugarcoat the fact that she's made some mistakes, but he also assures her that she'll be alright as long as she doesn't just give up. He's equal parts funny and caring, making him rightfully one of the most memorable characters from the saga so far. This category has just one more of the new additions to Riley's emotions, embarrassment. And this emotion is written to just be kind of a sweetheart. None of Riley's new emotions are outright evil or anywhere near it, but embarrassment stands out as the most caring of the bunch. While he does help anxiety in her takeover of Riley's mind, he also shows willingness to help sadness. He refuses to rat her out to anxiety, even going as far as to hide her behind some more files while she does her thing. He does still use his size to act as the muscle of the group, but honestly, if anything, that just makes him more of a realistic, semi-antagonistic force. Just a soft-hearted goon who has a heart of gold. And we're gonna round out our A tier with one more emotion, fear. What do you get when you take a tall, skinny man, give him a ton of chronic fears and paranoia, and a certain charisma that the ladies can't resist? Of course, you get Luigi, but if you make him purple, you have fear. This guy's an absolute gem. While anxiety is obsessed with thinking of literally every single scenario that could happen, which does earn some of Fear's favor, admittedly, Fear himself is able to keep things more grounded. He's not the type of guy who will spend hours overthinking how, specifically, he should word the delivery instructions of his Uber Eats order, so as to not sound rude, but he's the type who will delete his card info after he orders so nobody steals it. Fear is totally dorky, but he's also unapologetically careful and practical. People with a lot of fears are the unsung heroes of society. Yeah, bringing a parachute everywhere you go, just in case, is silly, until you actually need it. But let's move on to the best of the best. These characters fall into the S tier. And we kick this category off with another OG emotion, sadness. There's honestly a case to be made that sadness is the true hero of the original movie, while joy is definitely the main character and the one who receives the most development overall. Sadness is the character who helps Riley in the most direct ways. One of the best scenes in the movie is the contrast between hers and Joy's methods of helping a depressed Bing Bong. While Joy simply tries to distract Bing Bong and redirect his attention, Sadness actually sits next to him and listens to his woes, which helps him to actually get his emotions out.
Yeah, it's sad.
Sadness deserves credit for giving that iconic, hey, maybe optimism isn't always a good thing message that kids and adults everywhere ought to remember. It's always great to have a protagonist who's upbeat and sweet, but it's just as important to emphasize that not being upbeat doesn't make you inherently less of a good or pleasant person.
Okay.
She's kinda like Eeyore. Yeah, she's a downer, but she's still a nice person who's able to be loved and included by her friends. And we all have darkness chipping away at our hearts sometimes. Take it from Lance/Blade.
Lance/Blade?
As one of Riley's secret crushes, this knockoff Final Fantasy character is an edgelord with a heart of gold, and also an absolutely legendary special move.
I shall set you all free! We're doomed.
He's such a skillful swordsman that his secret technique doesn't even require him to use his sword, which is honestly just a whole new level of comedy. But if there's anyone who might be even more powerful, it's the tag team cartoon heroes Bloofy and Pouchy. Blue's Clues, Uncle Grandpa, and Toodles from Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. These were the ingredients needed to create everyone's favorite weekday morning cartoon, and one that Riley still secretly loves. Like Lance, they're this high up for not only being helpful in the emotions escape, but for being genuinely funny. The fact that he can talk to the audience directly, only for it to be revealed that it looks to the other characters like a stone wall, is just incredible. Either Bloofy is the only character who knows he's being watched by outside forces beyond his comprehension, or he's just canonically insane from being locked up for so long. The second to last of the emotions is standing just outside of our top 3. While this franchise doesn't have any full-on villains, anxiety is the closest either film has to one.
Hello? I'm anxiety. Where can I put my stuff?
A new emotion.
Oh, I'm sorry. We wanted to make such a good first impression.
Most people that struggle with anxiety will likely agree that this hits a little too close to home. Anxiety, to differentiate herself from fear, is the manifestation of worry over hypothetical situations. While she means well and wants to protect Riley from unhappiness and isolation, she ultimately sabotages her by making her a paranoid, perfectionist people pleaser. To be honest, there was the slight worry that anxiety would be redeemed in the same way many not quite evil antagonists in Pixar and Disney movies are today. which would have been sort of an issue. But rather than acting like anxiety can be completely subdued or gotten rid of, which it often can't, the movie instead concludes with a message that Riley isn't perfect, nor does she need to be. While anxiety does badger her pretty often, the others ultimately work to manage her paranoia and help Riley to live in the moment, enjoying the present moment while worrying about the future. The bronze medal for best character has to go to the series' overall mascot, Joy. We love a good redemption arc, and if there's one thing we love even more, it's seeing the redemption of a character who was never really bad, but just greatly flawed. Joy was the first movie's answer to toxic positivity. Her insistence on controlling Riley and making sure she'd be as happy as can be was certainly well-intentioned, but shutting out sadness instead resulted in Riley bottling her negative emotions up.
What are you doing?
And there. Perfect. This is the circle of sadness,
which was harmful to her mental health. This character arc of Joy learning to accept and embrace sadness for who she is one of the most profound dynamics in any Pixar movie, and it leads to some of the most gut-wrenching moments in the studio's history. But what really elevates Joy so high up is the fact that her growth doesn't stop after the first movie. We see several scenes where Joy and Sadness get along well in the sequel, showing that there's mutual care and respect between them, despite their differences. But Joy's old flaws are still there, as she and the other emotions, to a lesser extent, basically throw away any memories that would keep Riley's sense of self from being imperfect, which backfires immensely when anxiety rears her ugly head. Oh, sorry, that was a harsh word. But in any case, having Joy remain a character who is flawed but well-intentioned allows her to be the one to finally get through to anxiety and convince her to let go, and let Riley be who she is at heart. She went from a total control freak in the first movie to a character worthy of her leader status in the second. It's not easy being positive all the time, but Joy does a great job of working with the others and bringing out their own individual strengths. And all the emotions are great. It's a shame there wasn't a single character who ties them all together. And oh, right, Riley Anderson has to take the silver medal for best character. She's an interesting case on this list in that she isn't really a character who's written in a deep, complex way. Rather, she's the manifestation of every emotion we've talked about so far. It's always fun to see how these emotions affect Riley in her day-to-day life, whether she's overanalyzing social cues, catching herself after doing something awkward, or even having a much-needed cry now and again. She's far from a complicated character, but she's a sweet kid who allows the movie's more iconic characters to shine all the brighter. And also, Riley is the heart of these movies. She gets enough screen time to make the emotions more impactful, but not so much that she overshadows them. She's one of those characters you can't help but root for, and props for having one of the most unsettlingly realistic panic attacks in a kids movie we've ever seen. Finally, when it comes to Inside Out's greatest character, there's only one question that you need to ask to make a decision. Who's your friend who likes to play? That's right, Bing Bong is the best character in the Inside Out saga. And honestly, who else could it be? Sure, he's not as deeply written as Joy, or as crucial to the movie's core message as Riley, but Bing Bong is one of those characters who just manages to steal the show regardless. First off, his design. We've all had imaginary friends at some point when we were kids, but Bing Bong blows most of them out of the water. This is what peak character design looks like, and the charismatic voice performance by Richard Kind only makes it all the better.
I was looking for diversion.
What?
So long, sucker.
We've already given him the credit he deserves for sacrificing his existence for the sake of Riley's joy and sadness, but the real reason he's at the top of our list is that he's just too fun not to be.
I stashed it in there for safekeeping, and now I'm all set to take Riley to the moon. Oh, I'm sorry.
He can make you laugh, he can make you cry, and perhaps more so than anything else, he can make you say, "Aw." He's one of those characters who makes you remember the simpler times of being a little kid.
Better fix that wall, or else you're in big trouble.
All those happy memories you sometimes take for granted. Maybe we'll forget the Bing Bongs of our lives one day, or maybe we already have. But we'll try our best to enjoy those laughs and candy tears until we can't anymore.